Amira Elfeky is going to be a star. But how can I proclaim such a thing when she doesn't even have a full album out yet? The first time I actually heard Amira was my girlfriend putting her on in the car, and it really caught my attention. Today, we are going to dive into Amira Elfeky, her helping to revive new gaze, and why I am certain that she is a star in the making. Welcome to the Alternative Breakdown. Despite being in the very early stages of her career, Amira has a very interesting story so far, and for that, we need to dive into. Amira keeps a lot of her personal life behind the curtain, but there's still plenty that we do know. She's Egyptian American and originally grew up in Simsbury, Connecticut. At the age of 18, Amira and her family swapped the east coast of Connecticut for the west coast of San Francisco. She's since moved down the coast to Los Angeles, where she's working out of now. Despite where she's ended up, Amira never began with big label backing. The exact opposite actually. She started out by posting a mixture of covers and original songs onto Soundcloud, under a variety of different aliases, before settling on just using her own name. This places Amira as another product of the modern online discovery style of music industry that we see today. One of the most distinctive things about Amira has to be her sound. The primary genre I would use to describe her music would be new gaze, which in itself is a combination of two genres, nu metal and most prominently shoegaze. The best examples of other new gaze bands would be the founding fathers Deftones and the first of the new generation, Loathe. She's no new gaze one-trick pony though. There's influences all over the scene. There's new metal influences from acts like Linkin Park and System of a Down, to alt metal like Evanescence. If you take a listen to any of her tracks, and you will hear elements of all of these in there, and boy does it work. If you're enjoying this video so far, it would mean the world if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. It keeps these breakdowns coming your way every week. Let's go ahead and earn it by getting into the discography. So we know about Amira's story so far, but what good is that without the music to match? So for that, we need to get into. As of the time of recording, Amira Elfeky has released 2 EPs and a whole lot of singles, which is where we're going to begin. As I mentioned before, Amira actually started out on Soundcloud, but we're going to focus on her official releases. The first of those was in 2023, and it was a demo titled Tonight, and to this date, this is her most streamed track. This track immediately takes us into that new gaze sound that Amira does so well, and the best way I can describe this track would be silky smooth. Not something you can say for a lot of artists' debut single. After this came 3 more original singles. You had Coming Down, Everything I Do Is For You, and A Dozen Roses. After this came a very interesting project that was the first sign of recognition from the industry. Amira Elfeky covered System of a Down's Lonely Day as a Spotify single. For all Amira is with Atlantic Records, and that would help with making this happen, there's still some very strict criteria that you have to meet. One of the biggest things they like to do is stage these right before a major event for the artist, like a new major tour announcement or a debut release, which is exactly what came next for Amira. March 2024 saw Amira release her debut EP, Skin to Skin. This contained 8 tracks. These were the 4 singles we've already mentioned, 3 new tracks, and a reimagined version of Tonight. The standout track outside of the singles for me here has to be the title track, Skin to Skin. I love Amira's sound when she's in this kind of slower, darker, moodier track. I like all of her different sounds, but this style takes the cake for me. Following on from her debut EP, Amira followed a very traditional release schedule, 3 singles, then another EP. The singles were Remains of Us, Will You Love Me When I'm Dead, and my personal favourite of the 3, Death of Me. It's a little bit poppier, but I just can't help but love it. After these 3 singles came Surrender, and what a release this was. It's a simple 6-track EP, and outside of the singles, there's one track which really catches my attention, Forever Overdose. For me, this is the most we see Amira really challenge herself vocally, and everything about this track just feels ethereal. It just makes me want to listen to it with noise cancelling headphones and stare at the ceiling. I don't know how else to describe it, but if that makes sense to you, let me know in the comment section down below. This EP saw Amira experimenting with some more sounds, particularly leaning into the more metalcore side of things. This would be cemented as Amira got some more validation in the scene with a massive collaboration with Architects. She featured on their track Judgment Day off of their 2025 release, The Sky, The Earth and all in between. Not only is this a massive collaboration opening her up to a whole new audience, but it was also a whole new sound, and boy did she rise to the occasion. Just in case Architects wasn't enough for you here, the track was also produced by Jordan Fish, formerly of Bring Me the Horizon, and now one of the hottest producers in the the scene. This was the real deal. There is one final single after this EP, Hold On To Me. This is probably the purest newgaze of all of her tracks, but it served an even more important role. This was the bridge between her last EP and her massive tour run that she was going on, as she supported Bring Me The Horizon's US tour in September 2025. This was another massive opportunity for Amira, and once again, she grabbed it with both hands and made the most of it. She did so well that she's actually about to embark on the second leg of this tour in April, as it gets bigger and better. So her catalogue is solid, but how can I be so certain she'll be a star without a full-length release? For that, we need to dive into it. Firstly, we have to talk about a few details that I very intentionally left out earlier on. When it comes to influences, there are two more names that come up quite often, Lady Gaga and Lana Del Rey. Now, if you haven't heard or seen anything from Amira before, this will be confusing, but if you have engaged with her in any capacity, this makes perfect sense. Amira is as much about a vibe and an aesthetic as she is her music. Amira actually has a background in photography and personally directs all of her own visuals. She isn't just a product of a massive label, she is a real person expressing her art through the medium of music. She has dabbled in a few different styles so far, with some Twilight style blue tinted vampire vibes, as well as a more traditional gothic style. Overall, it just feels as authentic as it comes, and that leads to connection. Sticking along the same lines, Amira is also incredibly raw and vulnerable in her music. She's been very open about her journey with mental health and living with borderline personality disorder, which can be very difficult from my experiences. This new generation of alternative fans love to feel as much as they do mosh. Bands like Bad Omens and Sleep Token being perfect examples of this, and Amira is fitting that mold just nicely. This is massive on the risk to reward scale though, as any criticism is then a direct criticism of her, but nothing will ever compare to true authenticity, no matter how hard people try to fake it. We can't mention an artist in the online age without mentioning the grip that they have on social media, and Amira Elfeky is no exception. She has had multiple tracks having a chokehold on alternative TikTok, most notably Tonight, Death of Me, and Will You Love Me When I'm Dead. Circling back to her controlling her aesthetic and overall vibe, this led Amira and her tracks to becoming the blueprint for the new gaze revival over the past few years. She's become a staple background track for all kinds of gothic content, like aesthetic montages, get ready with me videos, or even a gothic makeup tutorial. Now we come on to the actual music, and one thing in particular stands out about her tracks. Amira's voice always stands out loud and clear. Whether it's the new gaze vibe of Hold On To Me, or featuring on the much heavier Architects track, Amira's voice refuses to blend in with the rest of the track. This doesn't just apply to recordings though, this scales to the arenas that she's opening for Bring Me The Horizon. If you were to say guitars were a 10 out of 10 in volume, then Amira comes through at 12 out of 10 with perfect clarity. Amira commands your attention and allows you to relate with little effort, given how much her voice stands out. I guess the biggest compliment could be that it manages to stand out without sticking out, which is an incredibly difficult line to toe. Last up, we have the genre fluidity of Amira's tracks. This is a bit of a cheat code as it's allowing her to tap into different fan bases and even different generations. You're a Deftones fan from the 90s? I've got an artist for you. You're a nu metal fan from the noughties? I've got an artist for you. Amira is tapping into all these markets perfectly as she pulls elements of all of them together into her own beautiful concoction. She does run the risk of not all of her fans liking all of her tracks, but let's be realistic here. Not many people love every single release by an artist, so aiming for that is insane. Even the most passionate fan bases like Sleep Token fans or the Warning Army have tracks that they're not as big a fan of. It's just natural. Now that we have all the facts about Amira Elfeky, it's time for... Amira is going to be a star, and I have no doubts. In an age of dying creativity, real art is fighting back hard, and Amira is a prime example of this. She already has validation in the scene from working with massive names like Bring Me The Horizon, Architects, and Jordan Fish, so that box is checked. She already has a substantial fan base, with 1.3 million monthly listeners on Spotify without a full release yet. And to wrap it all up, she has got a firm grip on the social media game. The sky is truly the limit for Amira. Now for the fun part, some predictions for this year. Amira is gearing up as we speak to head out on the second part of that Bring Me The Horizon tour I mentioned earlier on, and that starts in April. I'm going to be selfish here and say that we get another single just as this kicks off, similar to what we had with Hold On To Me. Better than that though, I think the two singles I've just spoke about will be the beginning of Amira's debut album cycle, which I'm really hoping we get in the second half of this year. If that's the case, this will very quickly become one of my most anticipated releases for the year. She does have another tour booked in as well, as she will support I Prevail's Violent Nature tour in September. All I can say is, I think we'll have some news by then, and boy I hope I'm right. That is all for Amira Elfeky, but don't run away just yet though. If you've enjoyed this video, it would mean the world if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. It keeps these weekly breakdowns coming and makes me happy, so who wouldn't want that? If you loved this video, then you will really enjoy my video that I did on Magnolia Park, a band who are killing the nu metal game right now, and they have a nice little artsy twinge to them, just like Amira does. That's on screen now. Thank you so much again for watching, and until the next time, goodbye.